Welcome to Top Tier Wrestling, your ultimate destination for all things AEW and WWE. Whether you're a hardcore wrestling fanatic or just a casual viewer, we've got you covered with the latest news, in-depth show reviews, and our unfiltered opinions on everything happening in the world of professional wrestling. Join us as we dive into the high-octane action, dramatic storylines, and backstage buzz of AEW and WWE. Get ready to step into the ring with us and stay on top of the wrestling world. This is Top Tier Wrestling. Welcome to Top Tier Wrestling. I'm your host, Josh, the Maestro of Mayhem, and with me is my amazing co-host, the Baroness of Body Slams, Dawn. Tonight, we're diving into all the action of AEW Dynamite from November 13th. Let's get into it.
Ooh, so electrifying.
Am I the most electrifying podcast host in all of sports entertainment?
Yes.
Nice. Nailed it. All right. Getting right into this episode of AEW Dynamite. This one was kind of a banger, honestly. And as Dynamite seems to be wont to do, there's not a lot of preamble. We start out with the first match with the Patriarchy making their way to the ring. So you've got Christian Cage and his tag partner, and this was a little surprising, is Hangman Adam Page.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going against the Bang Bang Gang, Juice Robinson and Jay White. And obviously the Patriarchy's got Kip Sabian now and Mama Wayne and Nick Wayne all at ringside.
Yeah.
And
although Kip Sabian doesn't really do much. He stands with his hands behind his back most of the time.
Yeah. But this was actually a really decent match. I wasn't sure what to make of it because I was like, didn't like Hangman Page not particularly like Christian Cage either? But even the announcers sort of made a point of like, you know, the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of a thing going on here. Yeah. And we end up with a pretty good match. It starts out with like White and Christian, and White ends up getting the better of the exchanges, and then he tags in Juice, who is just running around jabbing like literally everyone. And Christian kind of sneaks up on him and hits a reverse neck breaker on the knee, and Juice rolls outside. And we get Nick Wayne here, who tries to go on the attack, but Nick Wayne kind of backs up to the guardrail. And from out of the crowd comes Hook. And Hook gets a hold of Nick Wayne in what looked to me like a dragon sleeper, like it wasn't the Red Rum. And he drags Nick Wayne over the guardrail and off into the back somewhere. And Nick Wayne is never heard from again.
Yeah, legend has it. He's still in the back to this day.
Getting choked out by Hook.
Yep, still just get. That's and everyone's like, "Where's that noise coming from?"
Exactly. They're like, that's Nick Wayne's ghost, still choking. And then back in the ring, you get, or sorry, actually, this wasn't in the ring. You end up with Christian kind of looking out, like, "What happened to my son?" And Juice Robinson comes up behind him and looks, I thought for a second he was just going to mirror what Hook did by putting him in a Dragon Sleeper, because he gets him in kind of that reverse DDT kind of Dragon Sleeper position. But this was for, in fact, a following reverse DDT on the floor.
Yeah.
And
that is a move of note because it looked gross.
It did. I mean, like in a good way. It was violent. And then you cut back to the in-ring action, and you've got Paige and Jay White now kind of punching one another back and forth. And White ends up with the better of the exchange with some heavy chops. And White goes for an attempted back suplex, but Paige flips out. But Paige is still nursing that bum leg. So he staggers a bit, which allows White to grab his other leg and hit him with a dragon screw leg whip And then when Christian runs into the ring to try and stop it, Christian catches a dragon screw as well. And then Jay White hits a DDT on Page, and another one, I guess, for Christian. And long story short, these guys are really bringing it.
Yeah.
And it's pretty good. They're like, of major note is when, let's see, there's a point where Juice Robinson, Hangman gets Juice Robinson up in the corner, and he looks like he might be trying to set him up for some kind of big thing where they both need to be standing on the top rope.
Mm-hmm.
And Juice trips, and they manage to salvage it, and Hangman steps down to the middle rope and instead hits Juice Robinson with a massive middle rope fall away slam.
Yo,
And
yeah.
that was a really great move. And then a little later, or sorry, just not too long after that, I think Juice tried to recover from that fallaway slam by running at Page, and Page pops him up for a sit-out pop-up powerbomb, and that was just amazeballs looking.
Yeah.
And then I think there was also a very nasty complete shot by Jay White to Hangman Page when Page tried to lariat him. And then Christian grabs Jay from behind and tries to go for a kill switch, but Juice decks the life out of him.
Yeah. You remember when I said that that Kip Sabian really doesn't do much? He just kind of stands out. Well, he did something this match. Because once what was it? Who did the left? Who did the left hand of God? Juice to Christian.
That was Juice decking the life out of Christian. What I was just saying. And the nasty thing about that is that you end up with Jay White getting, he's outside there with Christian, and he hits Christian with a couple of moves up against the barricade, but the nastiest one was he Blade Runnered Christian into the barricade. And I'm like, that's it.
Yeah.
Christian's done, forever. He is done. And that brings us to kind of what you were getting into, where Kip Sabian played his one little role.
Yeah.
Did you want to take that away?
Because Mother Wayne, and I hate that they make me say that, distracts the referee, and Juice had Page rolled up.
Yep.
While that's happening, Kip Sabian cracks Juice over the head with the briefcase on the right. Yeah. He hits him with the briefcase, and then Page.
Then I think Page picked him up and dead-eyed the shit out of him.
Yeah, and that was it.
Yeah, and this was one hell of a match, honestly. I mean, I'm a fan of everybody that's in that ring. Make no mistake, as characters go, I despise Christian Cage and the Patriarchy and Nick Wayne. As characters, kayfabe. But as performers, man, all of these guys were really, really bringing it, and it was fantastic. And it makes me look forward to Jay White versus Hangman at Full Gear.
Yeah. Yep, it does.
And if we had to base our predictions on kind of who's up is who's going to lose at the pay-per-view, I think it sort of looks like this one's going to Jay White.
Yeah, I think so. I'm hoping,
I think he needs it. I think he needs it a whole lot more than Hangman does.
Yeah. I mean, Hangman will be just fine.
Yeah. I mean, people will be chanting cowboy shit till the day they die. So yeah. I don't think Page's clout is at all in jeopardy. So a really, really solid opening match. I mean, mad props. That was really good.
Yeah.
This is a great like get the fire started kind of a match for the show to open with.
Yeah.
After that match, which surprisingly didn't result in like any further like side brawling or anything, I guess because they had to go find Nick Wayne wherever he got dragged off to by Hook. Um, we cut to Renee, who is attempting to interview a Mercedes Monet and Camille, who are just apparently arriving, and they're walking down a hallway in the back, and Renee is trying to ask her some stuff about like the upcoming match, and Monet, tells her, Renee, you know how it goes, and won't answer the question until she gets a chance to say, you know, hello, Bridgeport, say hello to your CEO. And then she starts going off about like, not really, happy about Camille. Oh, that's right. That's right. Because Renee says, didn't you try to run her over with a car? And so she berates Camille, who is wearing a sling on her left arm, for not being able to, it's not her fault Camille can't drive. And then she tries to hand Camille her coat by placing it on the arm that is very obvious to everyone with eyeballs that is in a sling. And then she gets mad at her for it falling onto the floor. And so she's just totally like treating Camille like a dog. And I'm waiting for that to be a thing, like where Camille has had enough and she's sick of this little yapping chick's mouth and
Yeah.
just goes off on her and destroys her. But
one can hope that happens soon.
One can only hope. However, she starts to talk some smack about Chris Statlander.
But yeah,
Kind
she
of what she
stands in
plans to
the
do to her.
hallway
And
like an evil Chucky doll.
yeah. And then Statlander comes around the corner behind Monet, and she doesn't see her standing there for a minute. And then she turns around and sees Statlander, and Statlander rushes her, and she tries to run away. And then Statlander gets a hold of her, and they're fighting. And then Camille tries to come and do something with her one little good arm. And Statlander ends up like spearing both of them, and they both go through a wall. And so all three of these women are just on the ground going because they just got driven through a wall. Yeah.
Yeah.
So as much as I don't like Mercedes Monet, that was fun. I mean, if Monet has any draw power, it's that I want to see her get her ass kicked. That is her draw power. At this point, I just want to see her get power bombed and pile driven, and any other thing that you can think of. Chris Statlander, do it. But that said,
thank you.
We then come to Tony Schiavone, who is standing in the ring, and that was the whole purpose of that spot, is that it bought the 25 minutes necessary for Schiavone to make his way to the ring. And he has
the first
has
15 is because he forgets where the ring is. They keep pointing to the stairs, and he just keeps getting lost.
And he's just going in circles. Anyways, Schiavone is there, and he welcomes Will Ospreay to the ring. And I was mildly disappointed. Like, Will Ospreay gets there and doesn't do the whole Ospreay like for his song.
He was ready.
Like
he was ready.
I guess.
Guys, listen. Josh was ready to sing Ospreay. He had gargled with warm water right before. I heard him just do re mi fa so. He was getting ready.
Right, do re mi fa so la Ospreay. I was ready to go.
And then right when the song was gonna go Ospreay, they cut it off.
I was so sad.
I could hear him. I could hear him go. Ah.
It's true. It's damn true. But then Ospreay, I think Tony was trying to tell him something, and Osprey says, "If you don't mind, Tony, uh, I love
Yeah.
you, but I'm about to call Kyle Fletcher out here, so you may want to leave the ring."
You
And
probably
so,
didn't. You probably didn't hear what Shivani was saying right before, but I remember vividly what he was about to tell Osprey. He started talking about some wooden nickels that he found once when he was a kid, and Will Osprey was like, "All right, shut that old man shit up. Get out the ring. I love you, pops, but bounce." Truth
yeah,
facts. You guys don't have to
I
look it up.
mean,
That's exactly what
I
happened.
even saw, as serious as Osprey was about dealing with Kyle Fletcher, he stopped to try and see if Shivani needed help out of the ring, and of
Yeah.
course he does. Um, I'm giving Tony Schiavone a rash of shit. I actually really like Schiavone. I'm just picking on him a little. All right, like it's in
I
good.
don't.
It's good. Oh well,
I'm a heel.
for
I'm just
me,
kidding.
it's
I'm
good
kidding.
natured.
I'm kidding. Yeah. Oh, he's
But
alright. He's good. He's a nice man.
at this point, Kyle Fletcher starts to come out, and Kyle Fletcher is now sporting like he's bald. Or very close to it, very close
Yeah,
shave,
very
and
low
with his
cut. Yeah.
blonde hair, it looks very like bald. And he's a very tall guy. I think he's like 6'5", and he's wearing a vest. And if he had been wearing little tidy whitey trunks and maybe like black knee pads and black boots, he would almost be looking like he's doing an impersonation of Randy Orton.
And now I gotta go back and look at him.
Yep, the Viper, Kyle Fletcher. Um,
The fight. Oh my god. And that
the
you
only
want a
thing
Randy
is,
Orton because that's how you get a Randy Orton.
but one key factor is missing, and that's the fact that Kyle Fletcher, like, he got a lot of things out of puberty, but his voice didn't drop. So he's really not going to be able to compete with Randy Orton on that front. But
Yeah.
he makes his way down to the ring, and he tells Osprey that he's been in the Don Callis family. So before, um, oh, I'm sorry. Osprey says he knows that Fletcher, or since he's been in the Don Callis family before, he knows Fletcher probably has a tool in his back pocket. And Fletcher pulls out that little screwdriver and gives it to Osprey. And man, I don't know if it was intended to do this, like if he knew this was going to work or not. But either way, Osprey goes and walks to the other side of the ring and throws the screwdriver straight towards the ringside at the ground, and the damn
Yeah.
thing sticks like he drilled it. I'm like,
Yeah.
damn, is Will Ospreay really an assassin? I mean,
He
Jesus.
he is just that cool. Like Will Osprey is just that cool. Dang on it. I want to be him when I grow up.
Seriously, that's right up there with like Brock Lesnar yeeting the microphone at Roman Reigns, and all Roman Reigns
Oh,
did was turn his palm up and catch the damn thing and then wink at Brock. And I'm like, who the hell are you?
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. I know. And that's one of the coolest things ever. And this
It-
was too. It just looked
it-
really neat.
yeah, and I
So
was
whether or
blown
not it
away.
was an
Like,
accident, I don't want him to tell me. I want to believe that that was on purpose. That he's just and it works.
yeah, I mean, he nailed it.
Yeah.
So Osprey grabs the mic and turns back to Fletcher, and he says he's annoyed because Fletcher knows everything about him, and Osprey wants to hear it from Fletcher why he's doing what he's doing. And Fletcher like repeats all the things that Osprey did for him. Like let him live in his house, help open the doors for him in pro wrestling, stuff like that. Feed him when he, didn't have anything, and all of that. And but somehow Fletcher gets to where he thinks Osprey was just doing it for himself. And I'm thinking, exactly what does Osprey get out of all that? I mean, how deluded do you have to be? Like, I get that you're a
More
heel, but
bills?
like, are you retarded?
Yeah.
So, Osprey wants to know. Osprey. Well, the other thing that Fletcher said, sorry, and it sort of informs what Osprey says next, is earlier when he was shaving his head, like not earlier in this show, but earlier in this angle, when he shaved his head, he wanted to make sure everybody knows that Fletcher wants to distinguish himself from Ospreay. They're nothing alike. But
Mm-hmm.
then Fletcher tries to make the point that, I was just doing what you would do. You stabbed Okada in the back. You stabbed Omega in the back. And so Ospreay logically says, you know, which is it? Are you nothing like me or are you an Osprey clone?
Yeah.
And he, pick a lane, bruv.
Hey, bro's on the debate team.
Seriously. And Osprey then says, yeah, he stabbed Okada in the back and Omega. But before that, he had won like gold everywhere that he had been. What the hell has Fletcher done? And not while he was in Aussie Open, but by himself, what has he done? And Fletcher, clearly, because he can't answer that, he says it's not about what he has done, it's about what he's going to do. He's going to surpass Will Ospreay, and at Full Gear, Kyle Fletcher versus Will Ospreay. And Ospreay says, "Oh, so you want a main event match at a pay-per-view? Well, it just so happens that they call me Mr. Pay-per-view. And so if that's what you want, here's the carrot dangling right in front of you. But just know I'm the one that's going to be taking it all away from you." And it's kind of at that point that Fletcher, indicates that he hasn't come alone, because here's Brian Cage and Lance Archer coming to the ring.
Though.
But
Main event, Will Ospreay.
yeah, main event Will Ospreay hasn't come alone either. And Powerhouse Hobbs and Mark Davis, Kyle Fletcher's partner in Aussie Open, all jump into the ring. And Ospreay says, as they're all standing there staring, each other down, he says, "So are we just going to stand here with our dicks in our hands, or are we going to fight?" And fortunately, given that choice, everybody chose fight, because otherwise the show would have gone a whole different direction.
I would have had to leave the room.
Exactly. Me too. And
uh-oh, too adult for me. Bye-bye.
yeah. And so all of the men start fighting, and eventually they kind of most of them drag themselves away from the ring. But Lance Archer is still kind of in the ring, and he's got a match coming up. So it leads pretty seamlessly from that spot into match number 2, which is a Falls Count Anywhere match between Roderick Strong and Lance Archer. And Lance Archer starts to run up the entrance ramp, and he's looking for Roderick Strong to come out of the entrance. And Roderick clearly had, that one figured out. So he comes up behind Lance Archer and attacks him with a kendo stick. And this entire second match I felt was pretty cool, but there was one spot right at the beginning that I don't feel the production team did a good job with. Right at the beginning, Lance Archer, it isn't really hampered too much by a kendo stick, and he immediately, kind of takes control of the fight,
Mm-hmm.
and it spills a little bit out into the entrance ramp and whatnot, and then they go behind the scenes, just behind the stage, just through, not quite gorilla position, but right just through the entrance. And the space that they ended up in was pitch black.
Oh, yeah.
There was no lighting, and you could barely see anything. And there was a spot that they needed to hit, and it was Lance Archer putting Roderick Strong through like a backstage table that was right there. And it seems like it might have been a cool spot. I'll have to wonder, because it was all in the dark, and it wasn't until after the spot had been hit. So Archer choke slams him and tries to get a pin, but he only gets a 2 count. And it's not until after Archer gets back up and is trying to argue with the ref about it, that a spotlight turns on, and now we can see kind of what's going on.
Yeah.
And I was like, huh, well, that could have been a little bit better, because it was a cool spot that nobody was able to really see.
Yeah.
Um,
And somewhere back there, Roderick hurt his arm, or there was a nice little gash on his
yeah,
right arm, I think.
I think
He
you're right, but yeah,
kept
somewhere in the
looking
dark,
at it, so it must
when
have
he went through,
smarted.
yeah, when he went through the table, he got a nice little slice on his like the underside of his forearm. And I don't know if he realized it initially, because as they were fighting, they moved out of that spot, which was good, to where we could see a little bit better. And they start fighting out into the crowd. And as they're moving, I think when we were watching it, I said to you, "Oh man, it looks like Roderick's forearm's bleeding."
Yeah.
And Archer and Roderick fight for a bit, but as it looks like Roderick might be trying to head towards the ring, he gets intercepted by Big Brian Cage. And since it's Falls Count Anywhere and no DQ, like the Don Callis family can bring out anybody they want to just demolish Roderick Strong. And Cage attempts to powerbomb Roderick Strong, but that's when Matt Taven and Mike Bennett of the Undisputed Kingdom show up, and now it's just kind of a brawl for a little bit.
Yeah.
And somewhere in that, Lance Archer he stands up on a barricade, not the barricade that's right around the ring, but like the second barricade back in the bleachers. And he stands up there and he grabs Matt Taven by the hair and gets him standing up on the barricade. And this is a little thin barricade that's not much wider than like either of these two men's feet. So this is a pretty good feat of balance for both men. And Lance Archer gets a hold of Taven and he choke slams him off the guardrail onto two members of security who had run up and said, no, 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 because if he had chokeslammed Taven straight to the ground from up there, I don't think it would have been like survivable by Taven. Like he'd have been going
That
to the
would have
hospital.
been. It would have been. I'm at Taven's funeral.
Rip Matt Taven.
Yeah.
And then after that, Lance Archer attempts to do the same thing to Roderick, who is, kind of beat up at this point. And just as he goes to do it, Strong sweeps Archer's legs out from under him, and Archer like basically racks the bejesus out of himself on the guardrail. And while he's sitting up there like that, Roderick gets a running start and jumps over the guardrail, delivering his like what's been his running knee finisher to Archer. And I mean, that looked cool as shit. Usually I'm not a huge fan of things like running strike finishers and such, but this one looked really cool as he went over the guardrail and smacked Archer off the top. And then he goes for the pin, since it's Falls Count Anywhere, and gets the 1-2-3 on Lance Archer. And I thought that was really damn cool. Like, outside of the fact that we had that first spot that was in darkness, which was a bit of a glitch, seeing Archer get up on that guardrail and choke slam Matt Taven onto security, and then seeing Roderick, take the legs out from under Archer and then do like a flying knee strike over the barricade. That was cool as shit.
It was. Yeah, I agree. And this was probably my second favorite match of the night. There were a lot of matches that were favorites.
Yeah,
And
there
this
were
one was
some
a
good
good one.
ones.
I know a lot of people this was a pretty short match. And I didn't think Roderick Strong was gonna get Lance, but I mean, with the help of his faction, with Matt Taven and who cares about the other guy's name? It's not Matt Taven. The guy that's not Matt Taven.
Mike Bennett, yeah.
Kidding.
Matt Taven and not Matt Taven.
Yeah, Matt Taven and that other dude. He had the help there, but I mean, it was still I don't know. It looked cool. I thought the whole jump over the guardrail with the knee. I thought that looked pretty neat.
Yeah, I agree.
And then shortly after that, like honestly, right after he won, I think he was I think wasn't he talking? He was about to
He made his way back into the
yeah.
ring and did a little bit of post victory celebration and got his hands on a microphone. And they cut to a scene where MJF was like looking displeased. And the idea being that he's paid the Don Callis family to take, at least one of these suckers out. I thought this was for sure going to be where they got strong because it's false count anywhere, no DQ, right? Like, so
Yeah.
all of the family could have gone here, but it didn't happen that way. So yeah, he's talking, and I'll let you take it back.
And then Konosuke Takeshi. I can't remember what Shivani called him earlier. Dang going it.
Oh, yeah. Well, Strong basically says to MJF that this all ends at Full Gear. And then Shivani called it as Konosuke Takeshita came to the ring, but Shivani called him, what was it, like Konosuke Kateshita?
Yeah, Kateshka. Well, I'm like, okay, I don't know who that is, but that guy is coming to the ring. Um, but he hits Roderick from behind with the belt. He's giving him the ground and pound. But then Adam Cole comes out because he is the opponent that Takeshita has to fight. And that's the third match of the night. So this again, it just kind of flows
It just
seamlessly
flows one
between
to the next.
from match 2 to match 3. And this
Yep,
one was
yep.
another good match. I thought Adam looked a lot. He looked a lot better than I thought he was gonna look against Takeshita. I
Yeah.
honestly thought that Konosuke was just gonna own him. Um, but I
There were a
mean,
couple of spots that were a little vicious looking.
yeah,
I remember there was one point where Adam Cole went for the Ushigoroshi neck breaker. And Takeshita landed real high on it. And so I thought, did they mess that up? Because when Takeshita was holding his neck selling it, I'm like, did you really fuck him up? Because like that looked brutal.
yeah.
Um,
There were a lot of
and
times
there,
where I was like, oh boy.
yeah. Well, and there was another one where Takeshita, countered into a blue thunder bomb, but it almost looked like he nearly dropped Adam initially, but then he
Yeah,
powered through it. And so there were a couple of those kinds of things, but on the whole, I think it ended up being a fairly strong match.
yeah. It ended up being a pretty, and it also had a nice little story arc there, because the diamond ring uh comes into play in this match.
Yeah.
Um, go ahead.
I was just going to mention there was one more sequence that was just amazing looking. There was a point where Takeshita countered into his little double overgrip tombstone kind of a move. It's almost like Deadeye, but done with the opponent face like on the front of you instead of behind you. And he hangs on to that after he delivers it into a wheelbarrow German suplex. And then he followed that up with a massive lariat. And I'm like, this is it. Adam's dead. But somehow he kicked out. And then he tries to go for the power drive knee, but Cole moves and I think super kicks. Like he goes like he's going to super kick him. And then I think he kicked him in the leg. And then he hits Panama Sunrise on Takeshita. And it looks like he's going to lower the boom, but Takeshita rolls outside. And that brings us to where you were getting.
Yes. The dynamite ring comes into play here. Takeshita puts it on. And he hits Adam Cole with it behind the referee's back. I think he's out on the apron, and his back is turned away from the ring. Cole comes up behind him and grabs him, and I don't think was the ref distracted, or but there was something else going on where the referee did not see it, but Takeshita turned around and just punched him right in the face, and Cole is out. Of course.
The only thing I seem to remember is that the ref was there, but Adam Cole was kind of blocking his line of sight to Takeshita's punch. But I think you're right. What was it that was going on? Because I remember it seemed like the ref was kind of preoccupied, but I don't remember any interference, so I'm not sure with what.
Yeah. All I know is after clearly after Cole got the punch, then Takeshi gets into the ring, and three count, and that's it. So Takeshi won. So Cole does not win his third match. Roderick Strong does win his, which means it's not going to be a 3-man that I know of, unless they try to come up with some other way for Adam to get his third. Then if not, it's just going to be Roderick Strong versus MJF, which pleased MJF greatly.
Yes, they cut to a
He
scene of him doing the
giggling like a
maniacal evil
leprechaun in
villain.
his mom's or in his in Graham's study. He's just
Yep.
laughing like the Green Goblin. Right before
But
he got his cup of warm milk.
I don't think the Don Callis family or Takeshita at least were pleased enough with that. So Takeshita looks like he's going to go in and start wailing on Adam Cole some more.
Yeah.
And as that's starting, Roderick Strong hits the ring to try and make the save, but Takeshita gets the better of him as well. And it looks like Takeshita is going to put... I'm sorry?
He punts him to the moon.
Oh, yes. It was so good. Yeah, because it looked like he was going to, I think, hit Adam Cole some more. And when Roderick came and turned him around to face him, Takeshita punts Roderick Strong's gonads to space, and Roderick flew up in the air, 2 feet?
Yeah.
And we were like, wow, he kicked him in the balls hard. And it looks like Takeshita's about to put the Dynamite Diamond ring on again, and just knock the life out of Roderick Strong too. But at this point, Kyle O'Reilly rushes in with a chair, and Takeshita bails and starts making his way back up the ramp, with his international title in tow. And he gets to the top of the stage and he stops to pose and kind of laugh at him. And Ricochet comes out of the entrance and flying kicks Takeshita, and Takeshita just hightails it, he leaves. And it looked like Ricochet was going to pick up the international title and hold it, because he kicked Takeshita so hard Takeshita forgot his belt.
Yeah, he forgot his kid. He left his
But
kid
for whatever reason, the camera decided that Ricochet holding up that belt was inconsequential, and
they
it cut back to none given, zero.
The cameraman was like, "Oh, that's action. That's action. What is he doing? Nah, we don't give a shit."
Yeah, they don't care. So they cut to back inside the ring where Kyle O'Reilly is standing there, having made the save, and Adam is trying to offer his hand, make it up to Kyle, I guess, but Kyle just turns away and leaves.
Yeah. Kyle O'Reilly didn't want to be his friend.
Yeah, clearly there's still some bad blood there. But it can't be that bad because he rushed out to make the save. So what's up, Kyle?
I mean, I think he was trying to save not just him, but Roddy. He was going to go out there and save his kid pal.
Oh, that could be a valid point. Yeah, he's not as upset with Roderick.
Kind of like Sammy running out to save Jay,
But only proxy. Jay.
Yeah, but by proxy, it technically helps everybody else, But he goes out there for Jay, so I guess that's what
until
O'Reilly
he kicks Roman straight in the face.
Listen, that's not the point here, okay?
Oh yeah,
you're focusing on the wrong thing. Yeah. Jeez.
But after that, like high octane segment, we are brought to the back where we see Rennie Packets, our favorite,
Rainy
and
packets, rainy
she
packets.
she is the Duchess of Denim tonight. Like she is
Yeah,
head to toe denim. She is in like a denim jumpsuit, and I don't know. I thought it looked cool. Um,
I
but
thought it
she's
looked cool, but I
joined.
mean it was hot as shit.
I bet. Yeah, probably sweating packets. Um,
God.
then she's joined by Bobby Lashley and the Hurt Syndicate, which, for those who might not be aware, is Shelton Benjamin and MVP. And she asks Bobby if he feels prepared for Swerve Strickland and gets cut off because that's what Renee does is get cut off by wrestlers who are that she's trying to interview. And MVP cuts her off and conducts the interview himself, asking Bobby how it feels to know he may end a young man's career in just a week. And Lashley says Swerve is dangerous to everyone else, but Lashley's gonna hurt him.
Hmm.
And after that short but poignant segment, we are reminded that John Moxley and his crew are
Oh.
here to completely take over TBS, like all of TBS, like all of it.
All of it, the entire
And
station.
they cut outside where there is a black pickup truck, and Marina Shafir steps out, and then on top of being able to carry John Moxley's briefcase, she opens the door for him, and they make their way into the arena. And then we cut to JD Drake of the Workhorsemen getting brutalized by a chair by Wheeler Yuta and Claudio Castagnoli with a chair for pretty much no reason. Like,
Yeah, I don't know.
and it didn't amount to anything because they pretty much whipped him on a chair, or with a chair, I should say, on the entrance ramp, and then just kept going. Like, that was it. And so John Moxley and Marina Shafir enter the ring, and
I guess
Shafir.
what we didn't see is maybe backstage Drake was standing by the entrance to go out, and he was like, "Hey man, how's it going, Claudia? How's the wife and kids or something?" I don't know, but he said something, and Castagnoli was like, "The fuck." And there we go. So we didn't see it, but he said something shitty backstage, just backstage, and he got the business.
Oh yeah, that must have been it.
Yeah.
I mean, that or JD Drake was like, "Hey, where's Pac?" And they just started whipping him. Um,
Hey, no. He was like, "Hey guys, you got the time? It's time for you to die."
no, that was it. JD Drake was getting tired of standing by the entrance, and he said, "Hey, can
Oh,
you hand me that chair?" And they gave him the chair.
I go. You want this chair? Yeah. No, I think that's what happened.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
But the hostile takeover of all of TBS apparently extended only to Marina Shafir ordering a cameraman like into the ring while Moxley has the mic.
Yeah.
And he says he's been thinking a lot about Orange Cassidy. I'm like, look, is this about a match or your romantic interest, my friend?
Oh my god.
Um, but he goes on to say that Cassidy is playing the game very well. Even though Chuck Taylor is drinking his food through a straw because Cassidy couldn't save him. And even though Yuta belongs to Moxley because Cassidy couldn't save him, Cassidy's still cool as a cucumber. So Moxley's going to have to make an example out of him at Full Gear, and he will. Oh, yeah. And Moxley also needed you to know that he is going to stomp Orange Cassidy's face into hamburger meat, and people will see that and they'll run and hide.
Like, bro, are you a vegetarian? Because you can't make hamburger meat from human face.
Well,
You
and
might.
he can't. I mean, and I don't know how you make hamburger meat out of an orange. Like that's not how any of that works. Um,
Fucking
but then
vegans.
then he goes on to say that Moxley and his Death Riders command the world championship, which means they have the power. And I was waiting for him to draw the sword of power and turn into He-Man.
Mhm.
Um,
Oh,
no, not Lion-O, not the sword of
oh, not
Omen.
Thundercats. Not
He was all,
Thundercats.
I have the power, so he had to. Like, I was waiting for it,
Yeah.
and I guess that makes Orange Cassidy Skeletor.
Oh shit, that's awesome. Suck a
But
dick, John Moxley.
are you prepared for my orange punch? Um. Anyway, at that point, Orange Cassidy enters into, like, he comes out onto the stage,
He
and
enters the chat, right?
yep, he enters the chat, and he is accompanied by Rocky Romero and Mark Briscoe. And Cassidy says he agrees with Moxley and he believes him. Moxley can do whatever he wants because he holds the symbol that represents AEW, the power. Moxley has that power, and the only way you win that title is by wrestling. And I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, this all checks out.
Mhm.
He says he's beaten Moxley, and he asks Moxley if he remembers that. And at Full Gear, they're going to wrestle. And again, yep, checks out. And Cassidy will beat him again. But he says there's still a pawn that Cassidy has to get rid of, and that's Wheeler Yuta. And I'm sitting there thinking, why exactly does he need to get
I,
rid of Wheeler Yuta?
I'm not sure.
But apparently, this is going to happen next week when Cassidy will wrestle Wheeler, and he'll remove the pawn that lets him take the king. And I'm like, oh, chess. Okay, cool. And that's when a fight breaks out between the conglomeration and Moxley.
No, hold on. No, wait a minute. Wait a minute. You have to talk about my favorite part.
What's that?
You have to talk about the part where Orange Cassidy said that he had to take out the pawn, and that pawn was Yuta, and Yuta, the cameraman goes to Yuta, and Yuta is like, "I'm not a pawn. I'm not a pawn. I'm my own man." And then Castagnoli looks at him and says, "Shut up," and he
Oh,
does.
right. Totally not a pawn there, Wheeler. Totally. Nothing says I'm not a pawn like anytime you try to speak, you get told by everybody else to shut up in your
Yeah.
own faction.
A fucking grown man just told you to shut up, like you were like you were an angry toddler yelling at the ice cream man for not stopping.
that
Yeah.
sounds right. But as the fight sort of like moves into the crowd, and Moxley and Marina Shafir are trying to hightail it out of there. Uh, just as they're getting to where they're going into the hallway that leads out of the arena, from on top of that hallway, Darby Allin comes out of the crowd and like Spaceman dives onto them, and just knocks them all down like bowling pins. And they start frantically trying to regroup and get out of there because they've got splattered by Darby Allin, and now the rest of the conglomeration are catching up and starting to engage them in fights. And Marina Shafir does the only thing Marina can do, which is hit guys with the briefcase to get them out of their way so that she can usher Moxley to safety.
Yeah.
And let me just tell you, nothing says super badass like John Moxley needing Marina Shafir to fight for him and usher him to safety.
Yeah. Listen, they had a very important tea date that they needed to get to.
We're late for tea.
And you know how mother gets when you're late for tea, so they had to go.
So Moxley and company retreat to the parking lot and they jump in the pickup. And initially, it's Shafir and Moxley, and then Castagnoli catches up because he's the driver. And it looks like they're totally going to leave without Wheeler Yuta. But remember, he's nobody's pawn, and he means a lot to the Death Riders.
So much.
However, Darby Allin and his psychopathic ass
It looked like
runs.
he threw himself into the truck. It looked like
did.
he took his own body and yeeted it inside the back of the truck.
That's what he did. He ran at it from the side of the truck and like flipped over the cab walls
man is
into the
mental.
bed. And
He's mental. And
then he stands up.
Come on.
Sorry, go ahead.
Come on. Yeah, no, that's it. Like he's come on. He's yelling at the he's yelling at the truck itself. Like he's just ready to fight. He's ready to fight. Metal man, it matters not.
Yeah, and so for whatever reason, Claudio decides this is a good time to stop and get out. And so he does that, and Darby like flings himself like a spider monkey around Claudio, and Claudio runs with him back towards the building and slams Darby into a steel gate. And then, like, as he starts to fall backwards from getting slammed into the steel gate, Claudio grabs hold of his legs and gives him like two twirls of the giant swing. The first one's just a normal twirl, and the second one he slams him into the gate again. And then Cassidy and Briscoe come in to try and make the save, and Castagnoli runs back to the truck, and Wheeler Yuta barely makes it. He also kind of jumps up and into the truck bed, and then they get going, and you are left with what is it? Cassidy and Romero are checking on Darby, and Darby's just yelling back after Claudio, like, "I'm still standing." It's like, yeah, he didn't kill you yet, and Darby seemed really upset with that. Like, he is not happy unless his night ends with him as the victim of a snuff set film,
Yeah.
So,
no, real talk.
Give me your thoughts on this whole thing with Moxley and the Death Riders. Like, how is that coming off for you? Because they're pitching it like it's the biggest deal, and he is the world champion. But for me, it's not even like the top 3 of the things that I wanted to see or am looking forward to. What about you?
I am confused by the Death Riders for many reasons. They're so cheesy. Like it's so like Moxley is cheesy as fuck, and you already know how I feel about Shafir. She is like they're basically, by not quote unquote taking over AEW like they claimed they were going to do, they just sound like a bunch of really angry, crazy people. Like a group of people that just got together, found a new drug, and now they just be insane with each other. Because nothing else happens. Shafir, who's like this is supposed to be alpha dog dominant group here. Like they should be frightened. Like our people should be frightened of them. Everybody in AEW who's not with them should be concerned or get out of their way. Shafir has not been in the ring with anyone, and yet she's supposed to be his bodyguard. Are you literally saying that you have a wrestler who is hired as a wrestler, but she's too dangerous to be a wrestler, so she has to be security for a guy?
Yeah. No, I see your point. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
whatever the
shouldn't
story
they
is,
be going after all the gold and all of that? Like,
yeah.
I can't agree with you more. Sorry, go ahead.
No, just one more thing. I just want to say that, and the other problem here is Moxley does not look like the lead. Um, he looks like the villain that hires the actual villains to do stuff. And what I mean by that is he does not look dominant versus Claudio and Pac. Those two dudes, Claudio tonight especially, put in the work tonight. He did it, and he made himself look like a force to be reckoned with. Um, Pac has done the same thing. Those two make themselves look like forces to be like you are fucking with the wrong ones. But that's it.
Yeah.
Shafir has done nothing but hit men that you know can't hit her back. She's not gone after anyone. Meanwhile, there's a woman's champion right now who is calling out every single woman in the division. You are a part of this, apparently, right? I mean, you get a check for being a wrestler, right? Or do you just get a check for being the briefcase holder for John Moxley and the door opener? And the person who guides him out of the arena, because apparently now he's so fragile and he needs all the protection that he can get. That's the only thing that you can do. That's all you do now.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think this whole angle is all over the place because initially, and not even initially, like even down to tonight, where it was being billed as Moxley takes over TBS, and I'm
Yeah.
like, he showed up for 5 seconds, um, beat up a guy who is like so far. He is a bottom card guy,
Yeah,
right?
JD Drake, he
Like
ain't
JD
even mid
Drake
card.
of the Workhorsemen. I'm not trying to say anything negative here, but
Mm-mm.
like probably more than half, if not all of the people in that arena probably don't have any idea who he was or
Right.
who he's with.
Yep.
Um so they beat up a relatively inconsequential wrestler who had nothing to do with anything as like I guess some show of force, and it's like it's really not working because you're showing force to no one. Like you might as well have beaten up like 20 security dudes instead.
Yeah. You could have
Um
brought out. You could have brought out the Dynamite manager. I forgot that guy's name. The Adam Pierce dude. Could have brought him out and beat him up.
I'm not even sure if that is Christopher Daniels' actual role there anymore. Like he hasn't been relevant
Yeah.
for
I
a while now. But yeah,
exactly. But
that
that's
that could have
exactly
been
my point.
something. You
That's
know,
exactly my point. It could have been anyone, because like what they're pretty much on the same level. Like you bring out JD Drake, bro. What? Who?
yeah.
He beat him
So
up for what?
for no reason. So to kind of give my thoughts on what is wrong here with what
Mhm.
Moxley is doing is there's a lot to it. So give me just a moment. Um, One, they've pitched it like they made it feel initially like this was going to be almost like back in the day the NWO takeover of WCW,
Yeah.
and it doesn't have that scope. Like there was a point where I mean Moxley's like, this isn't your company anymore, and I'm going to burn everything to the ground and rebuild it from the ground up, and if you're with us then cool, if not get out of our way. And I'm like, so we've seen most of team AEW like kind of stand sort of against them, but we haven't seen them recruit anyone, which kind of made me think they were gonna, somebody surely would want to be on that team, right? But you couple that with the fact that this largely hasn't seemed to be like what we're seeing does not match the scope that we're being told that it should be. Like again, tonight they were like he takes over all of TBS. He didn't. He took over like maybe 5 minutes of your of the show time, maybe 10.
Yeah.
And that was it. And so I'm starting to think like maybe I was mistaken in thinking that this was like an NWO takeover, and not because I think I'm wrong, but because you've pitched it incorrectly. What this feels like is Solo Sikoa's upstart bloodline. Like, is John Moxley trying to be, the head of the table over here because he's got his own crappy little bloodline now? Is that what we're doing? And
No.
is Marina Shafir at some point going to be like, "I love you, John"? Like I mean, because that's what it feels closer to, you
Yeah,
know, because
I've
it's
never.
definitely not conveying that you are taking over the entire company when your sole focus has been first to destroy Bryan Danielson, and then second to solely focus on Orange Cassidy. Like, where is your company-wide takeover? Why isn't Marina Shafir attacking Mariah May for the AEW championship?
Honestly,
Why aren't you decimating Private Party, or better yet, recruiting them? Because then at least I could feel like, you're trying to grow, the Death Riders a little bit more, and
well,
you do have a leg to stand on. Let me finish. I know what you're going to say, but let me finish. Um, but at least he could have a leg to stand on by making the case that the only reason you guys have those titles is because I gave you the adversity of your, hammering your hand that got you here. And yes, I know Private Party, they're probably a little too dark of a shade for this particular group, but I'm just trying to make it make sense. You know what I mean? Like,
hmm
it doesn't now. And I'm having a hard time getting on board with whatever it is the Death Riders are attempting here, because you're trying to sell me a company wide scope, and as near as I can tell, it's not. And you couple that with the fact that, like you pointed out, John Moxley is needing to be ushered from the building. He keeps coming off looking weak as shit. Because on the previous promo, Orange Cassidy is completely on the other side of the ring, and Moxley, backs up. So, are you a tough guy or are you a bitch? What? Nothing is like, there's a dissonance between what you're saying you're trying to do and what you're actually delivering on screen. And so I'm having a real hard time getting into it. And
yeah,
this is an angle that, by all intents and purposes that I can tell, they want to be huge, and it's not. It wasn't nearly the most interesting thing that happened on Dynamite tonight.
yeah. And I was not going to mention their color. I was going to say that they aren't really they're basically what the Death Riders fight against. They like the Private Party or the perfect representation of AEW as far as they're concerned, which is probably why they would not try to recruit them.
I still think it would track better if they did, because, having presented them with that adversity and then they rose to the top, they sort of confirm whatever the mission statement is for the Death Riders. Like,
Yeah,
they're the proof. So that would make more sense. But this
I
whole
agree.
thing is just all over the place, and it doesn't have a cohesiveness to it. Like, what they're trying to tell us, what we're seeing, really at odds with one another. John Moxley trying to be a tough guy who isn't that tough because he has to hide behind his guard woman. None of it is landing right for me. It really
Yeah,
isn't, and it's a shame. I'd like to get on board, but this thing is too incoherent to really get backed. Like, I'm not sold on it.
yeah. I'm not sold on it either. And it's unfortunate because they seem to have put all of their eggs in this particular basket, man. Like they've gone, no pun intended, all in on this. And they're gonna have to come up with something to make this work. Um I mean my first suggestion would be to get rid of Moxley. It would be to get rid of Moxley. Um and to stop this whole Yuta is a pawn or like a kid angle. Just go
Yeah.
back to him being a brutal psychopath who snapped because things got weird. That's much better than this. I'm my own man. Shut up. It's
Yeah. Yeah. It's just really awkward. And I've already talked at length about how disappointed I was about them wasting Wheeler Yuta's like kind of like Darth Yuta, kind of I'm
Yeah.
my own man berserker kind of like mode. Like that's completely piffled out and Yuta's back to being just like the BCC bitch. Um
Yep.
and for nothing. I mean, it's not like it's done anything to make the Death Riders look cool. It that whole angle is all over the place. It's suffering from more make it make sense, please, than the issues we
Yeah.
were having with like MJF and Adam Cole hot swapping who's the heel, who's the face, who can tell? No one. That's actually starting to coalesce at least. But this
Yeah.
Death Riders thing, like Moxley's been here trying to sell this crap to us now for over a month. If not maybe a little longer. And I'm not sold. And it's unfortunate. Like they just need to get this shit to make sense.
Yeah.
But moving on from that, we are taken to Chris Jericho and the Learning Tree being interviewed by Renee Paquette. And I think the Redwood said something that kind of sounded pithy, but I don't remember it all. And long story short, Chris Jericho cuts a promo on Tomohiro Ishii, and we find out that Tomohiro has challenged at Full Gear Chris Jericho for his what is it, the TBS belt?
I think it is. Yeah.
Because he's the Ocho. No, I'm sorry, he's the Nueve. My
He's the
bad.
nueve.
And he says something about how like they've known each other for 30 years and they've been through some brutal battles. And yes, he accepts Tomohiro Ishii's challenge. And then he says, "Thanks, guys." And I think that was basically it. I am struggling to feel excited about that, and not because like I'm not as down on Chris Jericho as like apparently the whole rest of the internet. But I am down on the idea of Chris Jericho versus Tomohiro Ishii because I'm worried it's going to be another like rematch of like the same kind that was what was that dude's name? Something to Suzuki Sama or some crap where it was nothing but titty slaps for like
Yeah.
98% of the whole match. And I just am not here for that shit. Like I am so over just the titty slap contest with Japanese male wrestlers who just no sell everything. And that's the entire fucking match. Like
Yeah.
I have zero interest in that shit. So I think it's gonna be more of that. I'm gonna look at Full Gear, so I'm willing to be pleasantly surprised, but that is where my expectation currently lies for that, and so I've got zero excitement for that one,
Oh.
unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. I could care less about that match. So yeah. I'm not excited about it at all.
Yeah.
I
Speaking
Oh
sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
speaking of things that I'm not excited about
And could give two shits about
and could give
is
two shits about is Britt Baker. Match number 4. Dr.
yep.
Britt Baker, DMD versus Penelope Ford. And I am not gonna give you guys a play-by-play. I am not gonna tell you how this. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna tell you that this match fucking sucked, and I'm gonna say 90% because Britt Baker, Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. I mean, make sure everybody can hear me. It's mainly because Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, fucking sucks.
I mean, you're not
She
wrong.
I'm just maybe like maybe you guys don't understand. She fucking sucks. So that's why she's botch queen. She's a doctor of botch. That's what she is. Um, there were so many times that this woman screwed up a move or just didn't sell the move because I guess she's just too cute. Um,
Yeah, the
I don't
botches
know.
are the highlights that are worth pointing out, and by highlight I mean it was terrible.
Yeah,
There
you can feel
was
free. Okay.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, you can feel free to tell them about the botches, but I'm just gonna tell you guys because I really don't wanna. I'm not camping on this in an episode like this where everything was just chef's kiss. I don't want to spend much time harping on this
No.
shit match, so I'm just gonna say it was shit, absolute shit, and I feel very bad for Penelope Ford having to have this match. Um, and I feel very bad for the outcome of this. Look, I just hated this match, hated everything about it, and allow us now to all listen to Josh, and he will tell you the botch moves because there were a plenty.
Yeah, there were three major botch spots right here. Maybe there were some more because it looked
That's
like
three too
Penelope.
many.
It looked like Penelope and Britt generally didn't have their timing on point.
Yeah.
But there was a point where Britt Baker was supposed to do a corner complete shot to Penelope Ford, and that looked like absolute shit. Like they ended up walking almost to the middle of the ring for Britt Baker to be able to do this, and it looked stupid. It was terrible. The next one was a point where Britt Baker hit the sling blade, and I say that like with a major grain of salt because hit the sling blade, she did not. It looked freaking awful. She barely got any lift, and it just looked stupid. And then lastly, you remember how I gave mad props to Penelope Ford for doing the back bend to dodge a lariat against Jamie Hayter and then turning that into a cutter?
Mm-hmm.
She attempted that tonight, and she actually walked her back bend closer to Britt Baker because Britt Baker was so out of fucking position that when she went for the cutter, Britt Baker just wasn't in the right spot, and then Britt just falls forward. So it's like this cutter that grabbed no one, and yet Britt fell forward anyway. It was so fucking awful. And she just lands on top of Penelope, and the whole thing looked like sloppy amateur hour bullshit.
Yeah.
So in the strongest terms that I could possibly condemn this performance, I'm giving it a -10 neck nubs. And I'll be perfectly honest, I may have said it before, but I will reiterate it. I've given Britt Baker a chance to impress me, and she's dragging the roster down. I've given Serena Deeb a chance to do the same, and I've given Mercedes Moné a chance to do the same. If it were up to me, all three of those women would be unemployed tomorrow as professional wrestlers anywhere and everywhere because they are fucking awful.
Yeah.
So that said, this was a blighted black hole of a shit match in an otherwise perfect card. So thanks for fucking it all up, Dr. Baker.
I'm sorry.
I mean,
It
it's the
was
truth
just
though.
oh that fucking it up was visceral. It just
Well, that's how
uh
bad I feel about it. Like, she was so bad. There are
yeah.
people that would be cut from the performance center in WWE for that kind of a performance. And this is one of the bitches that's like, I'm one of the top bitches here in AEW. Fuck off. Go back to being a goddamn dentist and fucking people's faces up or whatever you did prior, because you are not cut out for this. Like, AEW needs to cut their losses on a lot of the shit women in this division. And the top three on my list are the ones I just cited. They are so bad that they just don't have a place in the goddamn ring anywhere.
Uh, I mean, I can't disagree with you. It. I used to try to back Serena Deep. I can't. And speaking of which, after this match that Britt Baker won, of course, because she cannot lose a fucking match, you guys. But after the match that Britt Baker botched, I mean won, Serena Deep came out and she was out there with the entrance, and Britt tells the camera that nobody cares. apparently, and that was that. So we don't, yeah, I mean, Serena Deeb just came out there to stand with her flag, and the camera eventually just meandered away.
Yeah, that's because the camera was as interested as everybody else looking at this garbage.
Ah, truth.
But moving on from that, because honestly, part of the reason this upsets me so bad is twofold. One, it's kind of burying Penelope Ford, who just made her comeback. And I understood her loss to Jamie Hayter, because Jamie Hayter is actually fucking awesome. But this loss to Britt Baker just buries everyone, because Britt Baker is such a sloppy, bad, fucking terrible worker in the ring that all it did was make it look like Penelope Ford lost to a freaking retard who doesn't know which way they should be doing anything in that ring. So it buried Penelope. And more to the point, this blight of a match kind of buries an otherwise perfect episode of Dynamite.
Yeah.
So fuck you for that. Seriously, Tony Khan is not listening to this, but if by some miracle it comes to his ears, please, for the love of God, your women's division is your weak point, and those three people are killing it. So fix that shit, dude.
Yeah.
All right, I'm done. I'm done with that crap because it isn't worth any more of our time, like you said.
Yeah.
Moving on from there, we are taken again to the back with Rennie Packets. And this time, she actually gets to say some stuff because Mina Shirakawa can't speak enough English to interrupt her. And she is in the back talking to the returning Mina Shirakawa and asks, are you looking forward to seeing Mariah May? And of course, Mina is, because Mina is coming, like currently during that interview. But before
Gross.
Mina can try to say too much in broken English, I think, actually, God bless her. At one point, she said she's looking forward to seeing Mariah May at Corrision.
Yeah, I think so.
Fortunately, after that, Harley Cameron shows up, and Harley Cameron makes us all super laugh and says, well, hey, since you're going to be at Collision, why don't we have a match? That's me paraphrasing because I can't possibly remember the insanity that was cracking us up that Harley Cameron said.
I lost all train of thought when tits start shaking.
Yeah,
So
she
keep
said
it, so keep
something
it
about
100.
like show up and, or bring your
May the
tits, rack them up,
yeah,
something like that.
and may the breast woman win.
And may the breast woman win. Harley Cameron is turning into a real treat. Like, she's hilarious and crazy. And so after
And then
saying
there was a
that,
tit shake off.
yeah, there was a tit shake off because after saying that, Mina Shirakawa starts, shaking her shoulders back and forth, so her tits are going back and forth. And
Doing
Harley
the
Cameron
shimmy.
won't be outdone, so she's got to try and shake hers.
Return shimmy.
And we have a titty shake off, like right then and there. It would have continued into perpetuity, except Renee broke it up. She was like, "Enough."
She was getting dizzy. She was getting vertigo.
Yeah, she was. But that was hilarious. That improved my mood considerably after what had happened before.
The only thing that segment was missing was Carlito asking or saying that he should probably learn Chinese. That's all that was missing. I gotta learn Chinese.
No, in this instance, he would have come up and would have been like, "Oh my god, he's gonna say the thing," and instead he would have looked at him shaking their tits and been like, "That's cool."
Yeah, and then he would have been like, I gotta learn Vietnamese. Hit on the ladies.
Exactly.
There are so many hot Chinas.
so many hot Chinas. You can take that one to the bank. Quote it, print it, Dawn. But that leads us into match number 5, which was Lio Rush versus Swerve Strickland with, of course, Prince Nana. And we get the full Prince Nana big pressure. I swerve when I drive. And so that was awesome. And Lio Rush came out, and instead of wearing like an oversized, uh, what is it? Knapsack? No. Trash bag? No. Sleeping bag. Instead of wearing an entire sleeping bag as a jacket, he was wearing a jacket that sort of made him look like Bowser from Super Mario Brothers.
Like Bowser.
And he had his hair spiked up to kind of go with it. And I thought, you know, that's the first time I've seen one of Leo's jackets look cool instead of like it was some sort of creature trying to swallow him.
Yeah. Yeah,
And I'll be
he was
honest,
Black Bowser, and it was cool.
it was cool. I'll be honest, I did not have high hopes for this match. Not because of Swerve. I mean, Swerve is amazing, but because to this point, I had not seen anything out of Lio Rush that I found particularly impressive. And I was pleasantly surprised. This ended up being a crazy good match, in which not only did Swerve look good, but Leo looked better than he's looked in any other match I've seen him in since he's been back in AEW.
Yep, another one of my favorite matches of the night. Uh, this definitely came through. And Leo looked. This was a really good showing for Leo. Like really good. If he was trying to advertise himself to a particular faction, wink wink nudge nudge, then this is definitely the match that you would have hoped that this particular faction would have seen.
Yeah. Um, Man, early on, both men are showing off their athleticism, and Leo tries to start out with like his misdirection runs to the ropes, and Swerve ain't having that. Like he keeps cutting him off at the pass,
Yeah.
and that ends up leading him to like resorting to new tactics, such as thumbs to the eyes on Swerve. But there was, I'm gonna go through a few of the highlights because there were some that were crazy. There was a point where Rush, to escape Swerve, kind of
Mhm.
dives out of the ring. Not like an actual suicide dive, but I mean, like he leaves the ring really quick, and Rush goes, I'm sorry, Swerve goes over the top rope, basically into a handstand on the apron, and then flips and lands on his feet facing off against Rush outside the ring. And we were like, holy crap, that was cool. Like that's right up there with that time that like Ricochet, I think in NXT, did a full flip over the top rope and landed in front of whoever it was that was talking shit to him on the entrance ramp. It was amazing. And some of the other highlights, Swerve hit Rush with a house call while they were on the apron. So like he house called like from off the apron onto the ringside floor, and that was crazy. Um Let's see, what was another big high spot? There was a point where Swerve was kind of taking it to Rush, and Rush tries to run away, and Swerve follows, and Leo. I'm gonna say Leo because we have another like wrestler on the AEW roster named Roosh, and I don't want to get
Yeah.
too confused.
Yeah.
So Swerve runs at Leo at that point, and Leo grabs him into a Spanish fly, like a flipping Spanish fly. It was crazy, and it was so good.
Yeah. It looked amazing.
Yep. And I think one of the nastier moves was where they're on the outside of the ring, and Leo runs towards Swerve, and Swerve pops him up over the back of him, and he ends up, Leo lands on the steps, by the, on the top of the steps at the turnbuckle. And as
Mhm.
Swerve turns around to face him, he jumps backwards and lands in like an electric chair position, and then he hits Swerve with a big, like a huge poison rana on the floor.
Yeah.
And we were like, holy crap. And so these guys were really bringing it. There was also like Leo Leo then got, after the Poison Rana, he got back in the ring and hit a massive suicide dive, and then he puts Swerve in the ring and hits a huge frog splash. And we're like floored because this is the most aggressive we have seen Leo looking.
Yeah.
And it ultimately ends up being a situation where Leo tries to get that Poison Rana again on Swerve, but Swerve catches him and, brings him back into the electric chair position and then pushes him like a little bit forward so that he can get him into the right position to hit big pressure, and he does. And so Swerve gets the 1-2-3 from a counter into big pressure. And this match was a banger. Like, not only was Swerve looking as good as he ever does, and he's great. Swerve has really risen this year and has become like a top guy, like in every aspect. But this was this was the very best showing I've seen for Leo in AEW. He looked really good going against Swerve Strickland. So this is one of the matches of the night, and that's what I meant by like being so mad about the Britt Baker and Penelope Ford, is because literally every other match on the card tonight is really freaking good.
Yeah.
And this was one of them, and this was a fantastic match. And then I want to say in the post match, Swerve ends up calling out Bobby Lashley specifically, and Bobby comes out with MVP, but not Shelton Benjamin. And it looks like Bobby, is willing to answer the call. Like MVP shows up and he's saying, he's talking some trash to Swerve, but then he says, "Well, it looks like Bobby is ready, willing, and able to get in the ring with you tonight. But we're going to tell you. Let me give you a piece of advice." I think he says that there is strength in numbers, and that's when Shelton Benjamin attacks Swerve Strickland from behind and knocks him down and out of the ring, where he gets clotheslined like really brutally hard by Bobby Lashley.
Yeah.
And then Shelton Benjamin more or less keeps Prince Nana tucked off in a corner while Bobby Lashley is just demolishing Swerve, throwing him around into the barricades outside. And then he eventually, he rolls him back into the ring and gets in the ring with him. And MVP then swaps places with Shelton Benjamin and uses his cane to hold Prince Nana in place, while Lashley and Shelton proceed to kind of brutalize Swerve some more, and Lashley puts Swerve in the Hurt Lock. I'm guessing that's still what it's called, basically the big full Nelson.
Yeah.
Until Swerve is like out. And then he lets go of him and Swerve's just laying there face down. And then Bobby Lashley grabs Prince Nana and yeets him like to the corner hard enough that he goes between the top and the middle rope and just sort of falls to the floor very, very, very nastily. And that's where that particular segment is brought to a close with the Hurt Syndicate up against Swerve and Prince Nana.
And Prince Nana got Yamchit. That's the takeaway.
He did. There is now perpetually a chalk outline in that arena where Prince Nana landed. So that was amazing, honestly, and it did a good job of like one showcasing Swerve and Leo, but also showcasing a bit of Bobby Lashley. But again, if who's up prior to the pay-per-view is indicative, it looks like Swerve's going to beat Bobby. But that might not keep that from ending in like all of the Hurt Syndicate like just destroying him afterwards.
You think Prince Nana's going to be there to dance, or do you think he got Prince? Is he now Prince Namcha?
He might be Prince Namcha. That's a possibility. Like they might be like, Prince Nana's not going to be able to make it to this pay-per-view because he's dead.
My
Um,
soul.
yeah, I know there's a lot of people that'll be real unhappy to not get Big Pressure with Nana dancing at Full Gear. I'm
Yeah,
hoping that's not the way they go with it, but we'll see.
he's fine. I mean, come on, you just got yeeted out the ring.
I mean, with extreme prejudice, though.
Well, he used to be a wrestler. He's got it.
He's
He'll be fine.
a good boy.
He's a
Um,
nice man.
he's a nice man. Uh, well, here's hoping, right? Because I sure think that the audience for Full Gear, myself and you included, deserve to see like a full blown super mega entrance of Big Pressure and like some really killer outfit, like that Swerve will end up wearing. So I'm hoping that that's the case. I'm a huge fan of Swerve Strickland, especially like I liked him before his rise. Like I was like, dude, this guy is really good, and we were watching him put over like all kinds of people, like Darby and Nick Wayne, and we're like, this guy is amazing. And we initially started looking at him back when he was part of the tag team with Keith Lee, and then he started to break
Yep.
away, and I was like, man, Swerve is like stepping up.
Keith Lee, you did that. Without too.
I wonder what happens like with Keith Lee. Like he went out injured and has never returned, and it makes me wonder like is he really really badly hurt? Cuz I've seen him do a couple of appearances with Mia Yim, his like real life wife over in
Yeah,
WWE. So it's like are you hurt or are you trying to get back into the WWE instead? Or I mean, I don't know what's up with Keith Lee, and it's unfortunate. I like Keith Lee. I'm a
yeah, me
huge
too.
fan of the Spirit Bomb. So hopefully we'll hear something back from Keith Lee. I hope he's all right.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I don't know either. I'll probably internet it later.
Yeah, but that brings us to the main event,
Woo,
match
buddy
number
does it.
6, the Kings of the Black Throne. And for those that aren't aware of who that is Malachi Black and Big Brody King of the House of Black. Specifically, that tag team is the Kings of the Black Throne. And it is them versus FTR in a qualifying match for a fatal 4-way at Full Gear against the current champions, Private Party. And at the beginning of this match, we have Private Party come out and kind of show off their titles and get a little pop from the crowd. And then they go and sit in between the two entrances in a little cordoned off area where they're, in fact, having kind of a private party as they watch the people that they're going to be facing off against, like the winners.
Yeah,
So once that happens, we then get the cool as fuck entrance of the Kings of the Black Throne.
I know they're
And
so cool.
yeah. Please feel free to gush on this. Like they are cool.
I mean, no, that's it. I mean, I don't even know what else to say, but like they just look so freaking cool. The aesthetic, guys. They I don't know, man. Like the lights cut out and they come back on, and they're just standing there with their like Malachi's got his little mask on with the horns, and oh Brody, yeah, right. Uh, it was Brody, right? Am I getting the name right?
Brody King, yeah.
Yeah, Brody King. Okay. He has like the like um like a mask across his like half of his face, the lower half of his face. With the hoodie, like basically they just look freaking cool. The music's cool. Everything about their aesthetic looks awesome. Um, and it just I immediately was like "Eek," about it.
Oh. And in talking about this match with the House of Black, I am remembering that we have been remiss. There was a segment just prior to this match. Forgive me, we'll get back to it, but there was a brief segment where Renee Paquette was interviewing Jamie Hayter. and she asked Jamie Hayter basically, "What's next for you? You know, now that you've dealt with Penelope Ford." And Jamie Hayter was saying something along the lines of, "I've come back to right some wrongs, and I've gotten a few, and some others are for the future. But for right now, there's only one thing that I'm pursuing." And then for some reason, it inexplicably cut from that to Julia Hart doing another pre-taped kind of video package, and this time she's having a nightmare. She's laying on her bed and she wakes up and she's wearing like the same shirt she was wearing in the first promo where she got shot with an arrow through the heart, so there's this big blood stain on it, and she's looking around kind of confused and sweaty. And then the phone rings and it sounds like it's Brody King telling her it's time to come back. But then you realize that like the phone, it's an old corded phone, not a cell phone or anything. And you realize that the cord doesn't go to anything. So it's like another big horror movie, Nightmare on Elm Street type situation. And she looks around confused a little bit, and then she goes over to her closet. I think she runs into the bathroom and starts washing her face and tries to wash the blood off of her shirt. And they have this like quick cut of her like in her makeup, and she screams at the mirror, and she runs back into the room. And there's this light coming out of the closet, a la like Poltergeist or maybe even Nightmare on Elm Street. And she opens it up and she gets her hat and like a bow and an arrow. And then it shows her kind of taking her hat, and I guess at that point her evil persona is winning, and it shows her kind of making her way out. And so it's another great promo for Julia Hart.
Yeah.
And so I'm here for it. And forgive me for derailing from match 6 right as we were getting into it, but talking about the House of Black reminded me that we didn't actually speak to that, and so I wanted to.
All right, makes perfect sense. Yeah, but no, I was fangirling over the aesthetic, and I think I'm pretty much done. They looked really freaking cool just on the entrance alone. And as much as I love FTR, I was definitely team Black Throne.
Yeah, you were marking out for Black Throne. I was too, and as cool as they were looking, I have to admit, coming into this match, I was like, well, I like House of Black, but they're going against FTR, so of course they're not going to win.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. Not gonna lie.
Yeah. So we start the match, and you have Brody King up against Cash Wheeler, and you end up with this huge back body drop from Brody King on Cash Wheeler. And it was funny because Cash Wheeler, when he was getting tossed like 92,000 feet in the air, screams, "Oh shit!" right as it's happening. And that made us laugh while we watched Cash come crashing down. His new name is Crash Wheeler. And then he tags in Malachi. And I'm not usually a huge fan of arm drags. Like they're good, right? But they're not like, wow. But Malachi Black throws an arm drag that actually looks pretty mean. And we get some real good back and forth. And without doing a total play-by-play here, there were some really good high spots. There was a point where Brody King like annihilates both members of FTR, and he gets them into the corner, and like I want to say Dax is already kind of sitting in the corner, like with his head up against the middle rope, and he pitches Cash at him with prejudice. So Cash basically gets used to deliver essentially a running hip attack to Dax, his partner, and then he falls. So both of them are sitting in the corner. And this sets up Big Brody King for like a massive like senton splash in the corner. And he hits both of them with it, and it looked brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, this match was so good that there were parts where they show Private Party, and Private Party is into it. They're like, oh my God, these guys have won. This match is over. They're
I don't know
they're
how many times Brother Zay said, "Oh, that's it. That's it. This match is over. This match is over." And it wasn't
yeah.
over.
I mean, they were into this match. Like they stopped watching as other professional wrestlers who were looking for their next challengers and started marking out as fans. Like they were like, "Oh my god."
Yeah.
Um
Like at one point the camera goes back to them and they were sitting but now they're standing. They're like standing and watching the match
yeah.
like holy shit and
Yeah. And it makes me think that they didn't know what the outcome of the match is going to be. So I felt like their responses were fairly genuine of like two guys that are watching the match and they're like, wow. You know, so they were into
yeah.
it. Another big one that was really, really cool was I want to say there was a point where Malachi Black hits, I want to say, a pop-up powerbomb on Dax for a 2 count. There was another really cool move where, and I can't believe they pulled this off on Brody King. I mean, because the dude's so tall and so big, but Cash gets him in the corner and does a superplex to him and hits it. And it's the powerplex. So Dax then comes off of the opposite corner to try and hit him with a splash, but I think King got his knees up and sorry, I keep doing that. Aleister Black, he is no more. He is Malachi Black. Malachi Black then comes off the top rope with a diving double stomp. Essentially the coup de grace from Finn Balor.
Mhm.
And they're setting up for Dante's Inferno, which I think is the move where Brody King ends up like prejudicially pile driving the crap out of someone. But they break that up and they are able to hit Shatter Machine on Brody King, and we were like, see, here's where FTR wins. But they don't. And
Yeah.
Brody King kicks out. And then Black pulls Dax out of the ring, like while he was attempting the cover, he gets grabbed by the ankles and gets yanked out by Aleister Black. And they end up on the apron, and it looks like Black is attempting to do a pile driver, but it gets countered, and Cash kicks him into Dax, who then pile drives Black on the ring apron. And I'm like, well, there goes Malachi. He's done. He's done forever. But immediately following that, Brody King nails both members of FTR with a gigantic suicide dive. And I mean, I'm not talking about like the, here's hoping I'm a big man doing a move. Like this was a suicide dive that Darby Allin would have been proud of. Like it was at Mach 20. I mean, I've never seen Brody King fly so fast so far. And he just obliterates them.
Yeah.
And then I want to say he throws in one of the members of FTR. I'm not sure I remember who, but he hits him with like it was Dax. He throws Dax back in and he hits him with a huge discus lariat. And it's pretty much just Dax and King at this point because King had laid out everybody. And so he gets only a 2 count. And so he hits another massive lariat and only gets another 2 count. And so at this point, he's kind of looking real frustrated. And so what he does is he picks up Dax and he puts him in that gigantic sleeper hold. And that must have been it for Dax because Dax gets called for being unconscious. And just like that, the House of Black beat FTR.
Yeah. Fantastic match.
Our jaws were on the floor after this match. Like, this was a main event match. This was an amazing match. Tons of false finishes. We thought that House of Black was going to lose because FTR very rarely loses when they're trying to pursue a title. And we were just surprised. And the in-ring action and the work rate on this was through the roof.
Yeah.
Holy shit. is what we ended up saying,
Yeah.
along with most of the crowd.
Yeah, that match alone was a 10. Like it
Yeah,
that
I
that
would agree.
match all on its own was a 10.
Yeah,
And afterwards, I because I think they're making uh Kings of the Black Throne faces. They went over to FTR, who were still on the mat and kind of backing away from them, and they
yeah,
helped them up and shook their hands. So
yep.
sportsmanship.
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 Yep.
Yeah.
And I
So,
I
oh,
agree. I feel like the House of Black is being turned into faces. They keep doing like honorable shit, and I'm like,
yeah,
I'm here for it because they
yeah,
totally don't look like they should be the faces. But hey, feel free to subvert expectations because this match sure did.
yeah. I agree. Um, and so with that, yeah, that was the last match. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that I would give this match, or this entire episode of Dynamite, easily a 9 out of 10, if not 9.5. I have to take something off for Britt Baker's match because it was garbage. But other than that, this was a damn near perfect Dynamite. It was high octane from beginning to end. That main event was amazing. Um, like everybody in that match looked phenomenal, and the match that Swerve had with Leo looked great. Leo looked fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
he basically, if this was football and he was trying out, he caught the eye, I would say, or he gave a performance that would catch the eye of a lot of potential. So I mean, it was great. Um, so yeah, that's all I got.
I am inclined to more or less agree with you. I really regret that I have to take points off for that match with Britt Baker and Penelope, but I do. Um, and the only other spot that would get it, see for me, instead of a 9.5, I'm going to give it a 9, and I'm going to
Mhm.
take half a point off because the whole rest of what happened on the card doesn't deserve any more than that taken off for the abomination that was the Britt Baker match. Um, and I'm going to take half a point off for what clearly is meant to be like one of the major overarching storylines in AEW, and that is Moxley and his Death Riders. For
Mhm.
that, just kind of missing the mark. Like they need to get that cleared up. So that's going to cost them half a point. They need to get that fixed. But that said, that brings it to a 9, which, you know, 9 neck nubs is top tier. So this
Yeah.
episode of AEW Dynamite on November the 13th was absolutely top tier. I would only anybody who's listening to this that's like, maybe you've got it on, you know, recorded on some sort of thing, or you can go back and look. If you decide to go back and look at this, the only thing I'd recommend is fast forwarding through the Britt Baker match, and unless you enjoy watching a train wreck, in which case enjoy.
Yeah,
But
you'll enjoy
if
it.
that was taken out of this would be a nearly perfect episode. This would be a 9.5.
Yeah.
So I have to recommend it despite those things. Uh, Absolutely top tier. Well done. If Full Gear is as good as this, or perhaps better if you don't have a Lulu match, then I think Full Gear is going to be banging, and I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to it.
Mhm.
Well, that has been our coverage of AEW Dynamite, and I want to thank everybody who has listened, and I hope you join us for our next podcast, which I believe, unless that special podcast that you mentioned, I want to say an episode or two ago, unless you're
Yeah, yeah,
ready with
yeah.
it, our next episode will most likely be Friday Night SmackDown. And we look forward to that episode, and we hope you join us for it. Until then, not a lot left for me to do, but roll the outro.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Top Tier Wrestling. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the latest AEW and WWE news and shows. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. Follow us on social media for updates and to join the conversation. Until next time, everyone, remember, wrestling is always better when it's top tier.